Let's talk for a moment now about airport lighting. Now, I have an entire lesson literally on flying at night, but I want to introduce airport lighting because it relates to our runway environment, and there's plenty of airport lighting we can even use during the daytime that we're going to talk about. But let's start with those nighttime operations. What about our airport beacons? Our airport beacons are how we work to spot airports when flying at night. But there's a few different types of airport beacons. Now, I apologize for this image in advance. It's not a JSON image, this is an FAA image, so I went to blow it up. It pixelated a little bit, but I wanted you to see it, and it conveys the message perfectly. So if you look on the far left side, you'll see a civilian land airport. If I was flying and I'm looking for my airport, I would see a green light, and just like that, I'd see a white light. And it's about that time frame. It's a green light, 2-3 seconds go by, white light. That's what I'd be watching for, a white light, then a green light. That's my civilian land airport. Now look at the second one there. If it was a seaplane base, it would be yellow. 2 or 3 seconds go by, then white, to show me that it's a seaplane base. Now, if it was a heliport, it'd be a little bit faster. It'd be white, yellow, green, just like that. Be a heliport. And a military airport is very fast. It's green, white, white. And you can always spot that if you fly over a Navy base or Air Force base and spot that. It's kind of, you think, geez, green and white is civilian, but green, white, white's military. That can be very confusing, but literally it is a burst of white. It's very quick. It's green, white, white. It's very easy to distinguish between that and a civilian land airport. I know it sounds confusing because they're the same colors, but it's quite different. So those are beacons at night. Now, an interesting little tidbit. If the beacon is on at a towered field during the daytime, that means the field is IFR. So if you're ever driving by a Class Delta, Class Charlie, Class Bravo airport, and you notice the airport beacon is on, that means the field is IFR. We turn the beacon on during the day when the field is under IFR conditions. Now, this doesn't apply at a pilot-controlled or uncontrolled airport because no one is there to turn the beacon on to tell them that, yes, it is IFR today. That's only at a controlled or towered airport. But kind of an interesting, good fact to know for you, especially when you're driving around, you may pass the airport and notice that. Now let's talk about actual airport lighting when you're inbound. You can see the picture on the right side of the screen. We're coming in to land. You can see on the left side of that image the taxiway lights, as well as on the right side of the image. Taxiway lights are blue. You can then see runway end lights. At the very end, they're red. At the very start, they're green. And I brought a kind of a neat little prop with me here to show you that actual light. You can see the start is green and the end is red. And literally how they do that is, well, the lens is just split down the middle. So depending on how you approach, it'll either be red if it's the end or green if it's the start for you. With our runway end lights, red and green. Pretty easy to remember those, huh? We can continue on with the last 2,000 feet of runway is yellow, or the FAA actually calls it amber, but you can see the end there. I'd certainly call that yellow. And that's a way of saying, if you have not gotten that airplane stopped by now, you've got 2,000 feet left to do it. Or if you have not gotten that airplane airborne by now, you've got 2,000 feet left to do it. So it's kind of nice to know that because at night it's so hard to judge where's the end of the runway. I can see the red lights, but they're so far out there, I don't have any depth at night. So the last 2,000 feet of our edge lights, as you can see in that image, are yellow. And then our runway edge lights are simply just white. As you can see, they're white, white, white until the last 2,000 feet, they become yellow. At the very end, they are red to show the terminating, the end of that runway. Now, what about approach lighting systems? There's really two types. There's a few more, but for private pilot, these make up 99% of the approach slope indicators you're going to run into. They are the VASI lights and the PAPI lights. Oftentimes, everybody just calls, oh, follow the VASI lights, even if they're PAPI lights. It's kind of like saying Band-Aid instead of adhesive bandage, or Kleenex instead of tissue. Everyone just calls them VASI, even though there are other types, such as a PAPI, which is very popular. Now, a VASI, which you'll see stands for Visual Approach Slope Indicator, and you'll see a VASI, that first top right image there. You can see it shows two red lights underneath, top and bottom, like that. Now, this is how we remember it. And I'm not crazy about this mnemonic way to remember it, but hey, it works. See the two red lights, two red on the top, two red on the bottom. That shows we're below glide path, we're too low. And how we're taught to remember that is red over red, you're dead. Now again, I don't really like that, but it'll sure make you remember that when you see two red lights, I'm way too low. Red over white, you're all right. You're perfectly on glide path, like you can see in the middle of that upper image. And then white over white, you're above glide path. White over white, you're out of sight. You're too high. So that is a VASI light, a visual approach slope indicator. Then we have a PAPI. PAPI stands for Precision Approach Path Indicator. And the difference is PAPI is just 4 lights in a row. Someone once told me, again, it's very cheesy, but it stuck with me. It allowed me to remember what's the difference between a VASI and a PAPI. Well, someone once said, PAPI has to lay down because he's tired. Well, whereas VASI's 2 lights, PAPI is laying down 4 lights all the way across. Cheesy way to remember it, but it works for a check ride, or if you're quizzed on, is that a PAPI or is that a VASI? You can answer that question appropriately. More importantly, do you know how to read it? A PAPI is a precision approach path indicator. So, how is it more precise? Well, you can see on the far left side of that bottom image, 4 white lights. I'm out of sight. I am way too high. Whereas I could have 3 white lights and 1 red light, meaning I'm slightly above glide path. I can then have what I'm looking for, which is 2 red, 2 white, means I'm on glide path. 3 red, 1 white means I'm slightly below glide path, and then 4 red means I am well below glide path. I can get a little bit more precise. Now I want you to remember this. The VASI, the PAPI, it's positioned usually about 1,000 feet down the runway at what you and I would call the 1,000-foot marks, or the touchdown zone markings. The corporate aircraft coming in, that's what they're aiming for. Whereas you and I in our Cherokee 140s, our Cessna 172s, we're probably aiming for the numbers most of the time, aren't we? We're not always aiming for the 1,000-foot marks. Why leave all that good runway behind me? Well, we're aiming for the numbers. So keep in mind that the PAPI and the VASI, wherever it's fixated on the side of the runway, usually at those 1,000-foot marks, that is where it's guiding you to touch down. So if you're aiming for the numbers, it will show you slightly low if you're aiming for the numbers, because it thinks you should be touching down. It's putting you on a glide path to touch down at the 1,000-foot marks. So when you get into doing your short field landings where your instructor says, hey, I need you to hit this point and land perfectly on this point on the runway. I want you to hit the runway numbers. I want you to hit the start of the first center line stripe. Well, you can use the PAPI all you want or the VASI all you want, but it's going to show you coming in slightly low because it's configured for a 3-degree glide slope on into the 1,000-foot marks. So it's great to have. It's one thing, please don't fixate on it. A lot of times when I teach students this, they just fixate on it. Go, oh, it's telling me I'm high. Oh, it's telling me I'm low. Look outside and you should be able to tell the exact same thing. This is just another tool. Use your eyeballs and use your best judgment to make those decisions, and use the VASI or use the PAPI to confirm what you're seeing outside as well.